Going on, everybody, here today with another Bodhi Tree mental health video. On this channel I talk about my own journey to severe mental illness, mainly obsessive compulsive disorder, severe chronic anxiety. I wanted to do a refutation video. Yes, unfortunately, even in the anxiety, it's almost like a religion, the religion of OCD recovery and anxiety, right? It's the religion of OCD and anxiety. I feel the need to do a refutation of a certain aspect, a very primary aspect of Robert Bray's approach to OCD and anxiety. Now, the reality is that the reason that I feel the need to do this video is not because I want to do it per se. It's not something that, I'm on here trying to dog Robert from OCD Recovery UK. In fact, let me say that I've been following his account for a few years, ever since I had OCD, and I agree with a lot of what he says on his account, including thoughts don't cut it. I agree with that. I agree with a lot of things that he says. I agree with a lot of and I agree with I like a lot of the videos that he has. Nick put up from OCD Recovery. I like a lot of these videos. I like a lot of these videos around lifestyle and just these very minor things that in reality don't really, play an enormous part in recovery, but I still think they're good. So there's a lot of Robert's work that I like. I'm not trying to dog his whole channel and dog everything he does. There's some minor things that I disagree with that he says, but the major thing that I disagree with is that what he says on his channel and on his page around mindfulness. Now, I said I agree with Rob that thoughts are thoughts just doesn't cut it. And he's correct. It doesn't. When you have somebody that's coming to you that's chronically suffering, that's been suffering for, a very long period of time, and they're chronically suffering and they're in misery, telling someone's thoughts are just thoughts, treat them like clouds, that's not a sufficient place to start for a lot of people. And therefore he's right. A lot of people never get past anywhere. They don't make any progress in recovery because that's not a good place to start. And what Rob talks about, this philosophy of unconditional life, self, and other acceptance, is a great philosophy that he espouses on his channel. And this idea of rational thinking about things in a more rational way, in a way that leads to unconditional self-life and other acceptance. I agree with this. Where I disagree with Rob is that the reality is that thoughts are thoughts, feelings are feelings, sensations are sensations. The feeling of anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, even joy and happiness, these are all emotions, all mind states that we experience. So even if thoughts are thoughts, this type of philosophy, because it's not really much of a philosophy, may very well not cut it for somebody who is in the beginning stages of OCD recovery. At some place in time, if we're really looking to achieve a calm mind, we have to transition over to thoughts are thoughts. Now, there is a philosophy out there, and mindfulness and meditation, and I talk about on this channel, it's been around in different traditions and in different places of the Eastern world many times. But the place that you find mindfulness and meditation and the philosophy and understanding and insights from it, that it's fleshed out in every detail, is Buddhism. It is a philosophy that the Buddha taught. And the Buddha did not teach thoughts or thoughts. What the Buddha taught was life is suffering and discontent, dukkha. He said that was the first noble truth. The second noble truth of Buddhism was that there was the desire. Desire was a kind of suffering that led to suffering. The idea that I could be happier in the future, or to chase or to hold on to things. All right, this idea that things should be different outside of out of this moment. The desire for things to be other than what they truly actually are right now. The third noble truth that suffering can come to an end, that there is a cessation to suffering, and the eightfold noble path, which is a path of, right view, right speech. It's basically an 8-step path, and the foundational core of this path, in which if you can practice this, which is meditation and mindfulness, a mindful lifestyle, that you can achieve an equanimous, calm, and joyful, happy mind. Okay? And once you achieve that through mindfulness and meditation, the rest of the eightfold path, like right speech and right view, these other types of more minor things, they just fall into place. So there is a philosophy out there. The Buddha himself, the ultimate thoughts guru, you say, right? Right, the Buddha, the awakened one, the one who awoke, the one who sat under the Bodhi tree and awakened into reality. He never taught thoughts were thoughts. He didn't teach that. He taught suffering, desire, cessation, and the path through suffering. That's what he taught. He didn't teach thoughts were thoughts. And so this is why I have a disagreement, and I'm in agreement with Rob that this idea that we're going to thoughts are thoughts. I mean, you're chronically suffering and you feel horrible, and thoughts are thoughts. But when we're talking about a perspective shift, right? The perspective shift that most benefits, all right, the main shift, all right, the main acceptance, the things that someone has to truly accept to practice mindfulness, and the true perspective shift is the first noble truth, that life is pain and suffering and discontent. Okay? All right? We have to accept that. That's the perspective shift. Because anybody that's suffering somewhere along the way has got so caught up in what they want, how things would be, how things should be. Okay? All of these very strong opinions and views. And in Buddhism, one of the eightfold noble path is right view. And all views in Buddhism are wrong views. All right, outside of this moment. Not saying you can't have opinions and stuff like this, but basically, saying that, our opinions should just be, we should have a relaxed approach to the way that we see the world. It shouldn't be these very black and white, views, these perspectives. So the main perspective shift is this shift to suffering. All right? The more we understand what life truly is, that it just is what it is. It's the here and now. The Buddha taught there was 4 things common to all people: birth, sickness, old age, and death. We're all born. We all suffer. We all get sick. We all get old, and we all die. The more we start to come to terms with the way things really are, then we can start to relax into reality. So no matter what your themes are, POCD, HOCD, somatic OCD, just the feeling, just the belief that, we shouldn't be going through OCD, the belief that all of these types of preferences and stuff, this idea that, we shouldn't feel this way. The idea things shouldn't be this way. The idea that I shouldn't be acting this way. Even our behavior in the present moment can be distasteful. That things shouldn't be the way that they actually are right now. All of this is accompanied in the first noble truth of Buddhism, that life is suffering and discontent. And so this is the major shift that allows people, in my opinion, to truly practice mindfulness. This understanding about suffering, this understanding about desire. I'm just breaking this down as an antidote, as a true philosophy, all right, against thoughts or thoughts. That the Buddha himself taught a robust philosophy around suffering, psychological suffering, all right. He taught a very robust philosophy around it, and but that doesn't mean at the end of the day you start philosophically, but the practice is always mindfulness and meditation. You're working, you're accepting suffering, you're accepting that things are the way that they are, and the practice of that is living in the present moment. That's the practice. That's the practice of being in the here and now. And objectively speaking, there is no more of an accepting place to be than in the present moment. All right, objectively speaking, I mean, the deeper you are in the present moment, the less you will suffer, and the more prepared you will be to suffer more. All right, if you desire nothing, all right, and you're worried about nothing, so you're not chasing anything, you're not clinging to anything, then you're in a place to where when these bad situations come, all right, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, when everything in your life does go to shit in reality, when reality you're already ready for it to go to shit, because you're not even expecting it. You're not even desiring it. There is no such thing in the present moment as preference. It just always is what it is. Not to say that you may not experience, you may, even as an enlightened being, you may experience yourself, acting in ways of discontent and suffering. All right, you can't predict how any of us will ever act when these moments come. But psychologically speaking, if you're calm and you're equanimous and you've reached a robust level of mindfulness, then you're going to be much more prepared. You're not going to, someone who is already suffering and then goes through these traumatic life events and goes through things are falling apart, this is going to push them over the edge, all right? Versus someone who is in a calm, equanimous mind and is aware, has this type of philosophical understanding of suffering, all right, of acceptance, all right, of self-life and other acceptance, can go into this. So my thing is that mindfulness, all right, is a practice that should be accompanied with this type of philosophy, whether it's self-life or other acceptance. I think that's a great philosophy, because I think essentially that's what the Buddha was teaching in maybe a more stoic or more European mindset. We have to accept everything unconditionally in this moment. And so my thing is that I don't know why Rob continues to say that mindfulness doesn't cut it, or that doesn't work for people or whatever. It just doesn't work for people that haven't practiced it enough. That's it. And mindfulness is, there's no greater practice than mindfulness for the mind. It transcends rationality and irrationality. Non-thinking being, transcends thinking. That's what. So, this is what I don't understand about Rob from OCD UK, is that Rob, on one hand, posts once about mindfulness not cutting it, but then also posts directly after it that people don't understand OCD because they don't understand these mental compulsions. They think they're all outward. Well, how can you? There's either thinking or being. That's your two real options, is thinking or being. You know what I mean? We can apply mindfulness in the moment to specific thoughts, feelings, and so on and so forth. But the practice of mindfulness is something we're really wanting to apply to all thoughts, all feelings, everything arising. You want to get to the point to where you're being, to where you are. Everything is what it is in every given moment. All right? And so, mindfulness is the compulsive behavior of thinking, whether it's OCD, anxiety, depression, daydreaming. You're just someone who's in your head, someone who's in their head. The only way for someone to get out of their head is to practice mindfulness. You have to break this habitual, over and over and over constant thinking, this thinking. The only way to break that, truly to break that compulsion, because we may see some of our thoughts as OCD thoughts and some thoughts as non-OCD thoughts, but the behavior is the same. It's the sense of self, the sense of taking a thought and twirling it around in our head. This is the crux of all suffering. And this is what mindfulness breaks. So, my refutation, to sum up, is just that, yes, I agree, Rob, I agree. If you're listening to this video, thoughts are not just thoughts, okay? Our thoughts doesn't cut it with people that are chronically suffering. However, I disagree that mindfulness is meditation, specifically adopting a mindful lifestyle. The real thing I feel like is that, when do we go to thoughts or thoughts? I mean, thoughts are thoughts at the end of the day. So we have to adopt the philosophy. We have to change our perspectives, but then also we have to practice mindfulness. It's both. It's not one or the other. It's adopting. That's how it is. So I don't understand. Like, there's so much. There's so much. I just feel like, on Rob's channel, I don't know if he, Rob doesn't understand mindfulness. He either truly does not understand mindfulness, or he's just continuing to mislead people about mindfulness, about, what it can do. Maybe he should read more about mindfulness. Maybe he has to practice mindfulness more. I don't know. I'm not in Rob's head, so I don't know. But I do know that, there's a lot of contradictory things that he says around mindfulness, and a lot of things on his page. He said you can't have it both ways. If you're talking about being, if you're talking about acceptance, okay, fundamentally the ultimate acceptance is this ability to be in the here and now. There's no greater acceptance than that. And that acceptance is only achieved through practicing mindfulness. It's not you can only achieve rational thinking through rational thinking. You can only achieve being through being. Mindfulness is the practice of being. It's not even a practice, it's a giving up. When you're every moment that you're mindful, it's just a moment that you're not doing anything. That's it. All right, that's it. It's a giving up. It's a lack of. The mindfulness is just a word to point to really our natural state. That's it. So a lot of people don't understand mindfulness. Anyways, I hope this video finds you well. Peace, y'all.